We have with us today Dr. Salil Vadhan from Harvard University. Welcome, Dr. Vadhan. We're really happy to have you here at the conference. So tell us something about yourself and what you're working on, your research.
So I'm a theoretical computer scientist by training. I work in, have worked in areas called computational complexity, which is understanding the limits of what can be computed efficiently, and cryptography, how to design algorithms for communicating and computing securely. And in recent years, I've become very interested in data privacy, and I got involved in a line of work on what's called differential privacy. It's a line of work coming out of theoretical computer science on how to enable statistical analysis of privacy-sensitive data sets in a way that ensures that the privacy of individuals in those data, is protected. So much of my work on differential privacy, coming from my group that I do with my graduate students and postdocs, is also theoretical work, building on my experience understanding the limits of what can be done with differential privacy, so not just designing new algorithms, but also proving theorems that say no algorithm can do better than some bound. But working on this area of privacy, at the same time, I quickly realized there's a big demand for these kinds of results that are being done in the theoretical literature to be translated into practice. There's a real need for people to be able to deal with privacy issues in data they're collecting. And so that's how we became connected with colleagues here in the Institute for Quantitative Social Science at Harvard and in the Berkman Center for Internet and Society, colleagues at the law school, on this large project that I talked about in my talk on privacy tools for sharing research data. So in addition to the theoretical work that I've done in the past, a big part of our effort is trying to take these theoretical ideas and see how well they can be translated to practice to enable researchers to better handle privacy-sensitive data sets that they collect and to better be able to share them with the wider research community.
That makes perfect sense. So you talked about differential privacy. So where do you see the differential privacy in the next 5 years?
Well, so I think there's two main directions, thrust of that work. So one, there are still some really important theoretical challenges that basic questions that we don't know the answer to, and I think we'll continue to see progress on those. But at the same time, there's emerging a number of efforts to try and turn these theoretical ideas into practical tools that people can really start using. And what I hope we'll see over the coming few years is wider community of people actually becoming comfortable with using differential privacy as a tool for dealing with privacy issues in practice with real data.
That makes sense. So what do you think are the industry expectations from us being researchers from your point of view, like bridging the gap between the academia and industry?
Yeah, so it's a great question. Privacy, first of all, is a big term and comes up in many different contexts. And where we have focused our efforts in this project is primarily on an academic context, that is academic researchers or people from the research community trying to share privacy-sensitive data with each other for the purposes of replicability, reproducibility, extendability of research. And in this domain, we've focused on this as our application domain in some sense because the incentives are best aligned there. That most researchers really do care for not causing undue harm to their subjects, and they really do want to protect privacy, but right now lack the tools to be able to do so, navigating both the the technical aspects of privacy, the fact that de-identification doesn't really work, and also the complexities of law, regulation, and best practices. There is also a great need for privacy solutions in industry. Many companies are dealing with huge amounts of consumer data that's collected in one context but being used for other purposes, both by that company and by other companies, and being shared between different companies. And in my opinion, that's a much more challenging context, because it's much less clear how to align the incentives of the companies with the privacy interests of their subject. I'm hopeful that it can be done. It's not something that I personally have worked a lot on, because we think that this domain of academic research is a natural first testbed for a lot of the tools and technology for protecting privacy. But I know there are quite a few people thinking about this in the context of industry as well. In fact, one of the panelists today, Latanya Sweeney, who's also a collaborator on our project, someone with long history of work in privacy, has just returned from a year as Chief Technology Officer at the Federal Trade Commission. And probably during that time, she got a lot of insight into what the needs of industry are. And just, from a distance, I can say that in all cases with privacy, you're trying to balance the positive benefits of data with the risks to privacy, and in the context of research data, you don't want privacy concerns to be cutting off the flow of data to advance knowledge and advance our understanding of humanity in the world. In the context of industry, we see the tech world, tech companies are doing all kinds of great and useful and things with people's data, things that you can't necessarily conceive of in advance. And on the one hand, you don't want to stifle that kind of innovation, which has lots of benefits. But on the other, we see a number of examples where things cross the line from innovation to really going beyond what customers' expectations of how their data will be used is. And so it's a difficult line to draw, but hopefully over time the incentives, people will start to demand greater privacy. It will become within a company's interest to be able to demonstrate that they are providing greater privacy protections than others, and gradually we start to see various technological and other tools adopted also in the corporate context.
That makes perfect sense. Your speech was pretty refreshing. So, what do you think? What encouraged you to come to this conference?
So, some of my collaborators on this project were involved in the organization of this conference, like Mercedes Crosas. That's how I found out about the conference. And it's a great opportunity for me as a privacy researcher to be able to talk to an audience of people. Here's a perfect mix. It's a combination of the Privacy and Security Conference, PASSAT, with BigData, which is our project is sort of squarely at that interface. And so both to be able to tell people on the privacy and security side what we are trying to do in our project and how what are some of the advances happening in privacy and security research as applied to sharing of sensitive research data, but also to be able to talk to a big data crowd and make people aware of the challenges. I think many people are not aware of how difficult it is to address privacy issues, maybe aren't completely aware of the concerns there, and hopefully to get some feedback back from both those communities about what the needs of big data researchers are and whether the kinds of tools we're talking about building, how well they'll satisfy those needs, and what are some developments that are happening in other parts of the privacy and security research community.
Thank you so much for coming and giving us an opportunity to interview you. Thanks for your time.
My pleasure.